joined by UMass Boston baseball senior left-handed pitcher JT Morin. JT, what have you been up to during this pandemic?
Basically, during this pandemic, I've been trying to stay in shape, stay as active as I can. I've been throwing every day, still recovering from Tommy John. Just got past the year mark, so that's a nice stepping stone. So now I'm throwing off the mound about 90%, so hopefully the future is bright.
You're one of the few athletes who might actually benefit in a strange way from this in terms of getting a little bit more time before that extra season. How much easier has it been not having to rush yourself back in time for a season, because baseball, with the exception of Asia right now, is kind of in a standstill where no one's playing baseball at any level?
Yep, I was definitely looking forward to coming back and helping out the team after a year off, but I do think this corona has been a blessing in disguise, considering I really don't think I would have gotten that many appearances this year, let alone be close to 100%. So I think if I could just take more time to heal, work on my pitches, I think I could come back honestly better than ever.
How do you deal with the mental side of injuries? This was your second big injury in college. Your sophomore year, you tore an oblique, and it cost you the second half of the season, the playoffs. And then last year, you were limited to 2 appearances. And then the Tommy John surgery late in April cost you pretty much your entire junior season and meant you didn't get to pitch in those first 4 games as a senior. A lot of times we talk about the physical wear and tear, but how did you mentally overcome those 2 injuries? Not being able to pitch, but also maybe not feeling, and I don't know if this was true, maybe not feeling like you were as much of the team because you weren't out there contributing the way you know you could.
Yeah, it was definitely mentally and physically exhausting to not be able to be out there on the field. I believe the 2 years I was hurt were the 2 years the Beacons went to the World Series, so maybe when I got hurt, it was a little good luck. So I have that positivity, but it was really tough trying to just watch all your friends succeed, and then I knew I was such a big role on the team. It was just really tough to not be able to go out there and help them out every day, because I know they really could have used us, and it still haunts me a little bit to this day, but I can't dwell on it now.
Well, let's take a look at your career and some of the times when you were healthy. You had a tremendous career. And it's potentially not over. We'll get to that later on in the interview. From day one, you were a weekend starter, which is typically reserved for upperclassmen, the top pitchers. And your first appearance, you got a win in the first ever game at Monin Park. What did that mean, A, to be getting innings on opening day, but also to be getting innings at a brand new park against a really good team in MIT?
Yeah, I believe my first appearance was MIT, and I honestly still do remember it to this day. I remember the first inning I went out there, and I struck out the sun. I remember thinking to myself, this isn't too bad. It's not too much different from high school, but as games went on, I definitely got a reality check. But after that first appearance, I think it just gave me a ton of confidence that I could definitely help this team out, knowing how good MIT at the time was and how I would match up basically against other LEC opponents on the weekends when I got those starts. So it was definitely a good stepping stone to get my foot in the door, to know what pitches I want to be throwing, how I want to approach college teams. It was definitely just nice to get the right foot in the door, my first appearance.
How much of a factor was Monin Park in your decision-making process to come to UMass Boston as an out-of-state kid, as a very successful high school pitcher? The idea of pitching in a brand new Monin Park replica, especially you were part of that class. This is technically your 5th year. You were part of that first class who got to come in as freshmen and play at Monin Park.
Yep, I remember my freshman fall, we actually had to practice over on King Field right over by the park, and you'd be stepping on needles, rocks, nails, and then once spring came, we stepped on the Monin Park, and it was like you walked right into Fenway. So it definitely had a huge impact seeing pictures and having coach tell me what it was going to be like. I actually never looked at the school before I committed. I believe he was one of the first people to contact me. And my sister was in school in Boston at the time, and it was right on the water. I had a mini Fenway park. I was like, this is a dream come true. So I remember I committed right away, and I never looked back.
Another aspect of your career, when you were healthy for the playoffs, you pitched extremely well. Just looking at some of your appearances, freshman year, I think it's the only time you came out of the pen, or one of the few times you got a one-out save against Southern Maine in the LAC tournament and came back the next day and beat UMass Dartmouth. And then your redshirt sophomore, your junior season, you beat Southern Maine in the LAC tournament. And the game I really want to focus on is the Ramapo start. It was you and Corey Heitler, who's now a professional pitcher with the Reds, and probably the best pitcher's duel I can remember over the last 4 years. What do you remember from that game down on the Cape? Game 2 of the regionals, both teams were undefeated. You both went 7 or more innings. It was a 1-1 game after 9. The Beacons won in extras. What was that game like for you? And as a pitcher, is there some added motivation when you know you're going up against a big-name guy or a guy who might be going pro, a chance to kind of measure yourself against him even though you're not directly competing?
Yep. I mean, just even you talking about it gives me a little chills thinking about that game. I would say it was a top 2 all-time game for me in my baseball career, and I remember it like it was yesterday, and it was also nice to have, we had Coach DeFrance, who was a Ramapo coach at the time, and then he ended up coming here. Sadly, he never got to see me throw as a Beacon, but he got to see the real JT, so that was nice. But I just remember, when it comes playoffs, you try to treat it like any other game. Obviously, it's really hard to, but it's really what you need to do, because you can't put too much pressure on yourself or you're just going to end up choking. So I just try to stay as calm as I can, but definitely having a good opponent and a good pitcher opponent really makes me just focus that much more, because you know you want to beat him. You hear he was a draft prospect. He might get drafted. So it was definitely nice to come out on top on that one.
You said that was a top 2 game for you. What's that other game that ranks up there with that one?
It's between the Southern Maine game and probably my senior year, the FCAC championship. That was another game. Those are definitely my top 3, but I don't want to choose between those. Those are tough.
Well, let's kind of focus on the same thing, but in a different way. Is there a moment, whether individually or a team accomplishment, that you're really going to be able to look back at and cherish going forward from your time as a Beacon?
I really think the Southern Maine appearance, when I had to come out of the pen, and then when I had to pitch against them in the playoffs. I just know the Beacons and Southern Maine are not friendly with each other. So those are the games I just really love to do well in. It was very rewarding to do good against Southern Maine.
JT, we talked about it in the beginning, how you were coming off an injury, you are trying to pitch. Let's talk a bit about your future right now. You are set to graduate. UMass Boston won't hold a graduation until a couple weeks from now, or maybe a couple months, but you're set to graduate, but you want to continue playing baseball. You do have another year athletically if you want to use it for UMass Boston, or you could try to sign with a professional team. What's kind of running through your mind right now in terms of your future as a baseball player?
Basically, for me, it's all from my own standpoint. I know where I want to be physically and how I want to be throwing off the mound. And if I'm not where I want to be by the time I want to do the tryouts, maybe going back to UMB is the right decision to build up and get some more exposure. Or if I'm comfortable with where I'm at, maybe I want to go to Eric Cressy, a guy who works with the Yankees, and try and get my velocity up and get all the rust and kinks out and get some serious exposure from him, and then try and pursue my professional career from there.
What's kind of the timeline? Obviously, things are probably not as set in stone just because no one knows when certain states are going to open up or when baseball is going to open up. But what kind of timeline are you expecting in terms of when you'd have to make that decision?
Right now, I'm just trying to play it by ear, honestly. I'm close to 100% throwing, so I just want to stay there and make sure I'm at my peak performance for when the times do change and we can actually go out and live a normal life again. But for now, I'm kind of just playing it by ear and letting this epidemic decide it almost for me.
Very fair. I'd like to take a little time to talk about your academics. You're graduating with a degree in communications. You don't have to worry about a job in that field or even in any field right away if you're going to continue focusing on baseball. But was there a certain class or a certain aspect of your major that you really enjoyed and you'd maybe like to pursue a little bit more going forward?
Yeah, there's probably two classes that stick out in my mind. And the first one would be a core class that the communications added, I believe, my junior year, which was public speaking, which I think is very necessary for a communication major. It just helps me get out of my comfort zone and helps me interact with people in a better way. And then the other class I would say was crisis communication, which basically just helps you handle crises that are going on. And I was fortunate enough to be in that class this semester during this epidemic, so we really got to deal a lot with Corona and figure out how to handle certain crisis situations in a certain way.
Couldn't ask for any better timing with that. Well, JT, it was a real pleasure catching up. It's great to hear that you're almost 100%, and it's going to be very exciting to follow your baseball career, whether it is as a Beacon next year or seeing you go professional. We wish you the best of luck either way.
I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to the future, and I hope all is well with you guys as well.